My guests in this hour tonight are two of the stars of Dark Shadows. They'll both be appearing at this reunion and convention at the Airport Marriott starting tomorrow in the Los Angeles area. Here is Kathryn Leigh Scott, who played the part of Maggie Evans. Most recently, she starred in The Last Days of Patton and in Paradise, and her book is out by her own publishing company called My Scrapbook Memories of Dark Shadows. Kathryn, thank you for coming in tonight. And Jonathan Frid joins us, Barnabas Collins, a veteran Shakespearean actor who most recently was in the Broadway touring company of a wonderful piece of theater called Arsenic and Old Lace, which was the senior class play in my freshman year of high school, and I worked on the stage crew on it, and I liked it a lot. So Jonathan and Kathryn, I really appreciate your being here, and I can't tell you how excited this audience is that you people are here tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I was equally as excited myself.
In fact, Danny Curtis was here a couple of months ago to talk about War and Remembrance, on ABC TV, and when we went to the phones, they all asked about Dark Shadows. No.
And what was his reaction?
He was delighted.
Oh,
Good. He was very, very
good.
gracious about it.
Well, you see, it's very strange. For almost 15 years, this wasn't a part of our lives, and then all of a sudden we realized that the show was still playing in reruns. It's never been off the air.
I know.
So,
As I said to the audience, they put it on for 8 weeks in New York as a replacement between show A and show B. I don't remember what they were. And I mean, the ratings go through the roof when this thing comes on. Did you have any idea when you were doing this show that it would wind up being this kind of a cult hit, that it would just have take on a life of its own?
No, I don't think we had any idea. And in fact, the ratings, I think, were very poor in the very beginning. And then when Jonathan came on to play Barnabas Collins, the vampire, of course, the ratings did take off. But it seemed like it happened almost overnight, that we had crowds of people outside the studio.
Yeah.
And I don't think we had an inkling, though, that it would have this lasting quality,
But now,
20 years.
What do you mean? Was it kind of limping along, Jonathan, before Barnabas Collins came on as the vampire?
Well, of course, I
mean, I know you weren't
I
there.
didn't know. I wasn't there, and I'd never heard of the thing. As a matter of fact, I was prepared to come out to the coast here and take up a life as a professor. I'd got an MFA from Yale in directing, and I wanted to be a drama professor. And so I told my agent that I was through with show business. I was on a tour with Ray Milland at the time. Came back into New York and...
May I ask what you did with Jack Milland? What show did you do with him?
Ray Milland?
Yeah.
Jack? Did you call him Jack?
Well, those of us who knew him here, it was Jack.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it was a hostile witness.
Yeah.
And anyway, I was prepared to go into this field, and my agent was on the phone precisely at the moment I arrived back from Florida in my apartment, left the bags in the hall, went to my phone, and he said, Jonathan, I'm glad you're back in town. There's a soap opera that they want to have a vampire, and we think you could do that job very well. And I said, look, I'm on my way to the coast, and it was just, of course, a fluke that he called me at that moment. Otherwise, this would never have happened. And you know my plans. He said, but you've got about a few weeks before you're going to leave, surely. And I said, yes, I have to pack up and everything. Well, you could make a little pocket money for yourself on the way out. And so I said, okay, I'll go up and read. And of course, because I didn't particularly want it, I got it. Of course, that's a classic story. And I thought I was perfectly dreadful in the show for about the first year. I have a bad time. I'm a slow study, and I'm not geared for that kind of pressure of daily learning lines.
With respect, because you're a craftsman. You're a very
well.
Thank you. Did you think, and I asked this with respect in the beginning, that this was maybe a little bit beneath your efforts? That
oh no, never.
No?
Oh
No?
never. No. I looked up to. I wish that I could rise to the professional level that everybody else had on the show. No, I never had time to think about. I mean, I don't watch soap operas particularly,
right,
to be quite frank. But no, it was a job that demanded a certain kind of artistry, a certain kind of technique, and I worked very hard to reach that level. I do, to my own credit, it's not false modesty, I did really treat the role as if I were doing Hamlet. And possibly that's why it became such an interesting role.
And I'm sure you both agree that doing a show like Dark Shadows day after day after day is very, very hard work. It's not easy. Not easy at all.
I mean, when you think that you finish a show at 4 o'clock, but by that time the next day you will have done another one that you haven't even looked at yet. I mean, a complete show. I mean, it's
and I think Dark Shadows was also especially difficult because we had so much special effects.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. And very often the special effects is what took the time. We had very little time to rehearse acting.
Exactly.
Right, because you go back in time a lot, and
Oh,
you do all
yes.
kinds of different things. It was Fantasyland on
Oh,
television
yes.
most days.
We time tripped through 3 centuries. I played 4 distinct characters on the show, and people like Grayson Hall and Thayer David and several of the others played as many as 10 and 12 characters.
What happens when you all get together, as will happen this weekend in Southern California?
Oh, we're family.
I'm
We're
sure,
family,
yeah.
Tom. I mean, we just some of the people I don't see from one year to the next, and others I see quite frequently. But when we get together, it's like family. We were close then, and we still are.
And when the audience comes in, the fans come in, I notice that, you have autographs and you have to take pictures and they can ask questions. What do they like to ask about when they see you guys? What?
Well, one thing that's really gratifying, since we've all gone on to other things, they do want to know what we're doing now.
Sure.
And then they like to hear the old stories, the anecdotes, the
Well,
behind the scenes
they want
stuff.
to hear the stories that they know better than we do.
Yes, and it's almost
Now tell the one about you.
But that's exactly it. They have their favorites, and they enjoy asking us to retell them. It's a wonderful audience, very forgiving and loving and
What are
caring.
some of their favorite stories?
I think their favorite story that I tell is the day that I started playing Josette Dupre.
Mm-hmm.
I'd started off in the show playing Maggie Evans, who was a waitress in a roadside diner. And I went into the studio one day just to get some scripts, and I wasn't working. And the producer was working with the wardrobe woman, dressing up this clothes dummy with bits of lace and bits of hair and so on to make her look like a ghost. And they put green light on her, and they put a fan on it, and it still looked tatty and tacky. And so I offered to stand in for the dummy. And the other actors thought I was crazy to do that because it was just stand-in work. And I had a great time. They took a ping pong ball and they sliced it in half and they painted an eye on it. And they put that on my cheek and they blocked out one eye. So I really did look like I'd tumbled off a cliff. And it was so effective that when Dan Curtis saw it, he decided that I ought to play Josette Dupre. And I think the powers that be at ABC told him that wouldn't work. I was already playing Maggie Evans.
Sure.
It would confuse the audience. And, of course, it didn't. And it was the first time that any of us played 2 characters. And then, of course, all of us started playing a lot of different characters. I played 4 altogether.
Now, are you touring now with your show?
Jonathan Frid's Fools and Fiends.
Fools and Fiends,
Yes,
yeah.
I am. It's a college circuit show.
And do you do
I'm a storyteller now.
Do you do Barnabas when you go on?
No, but all this started at these conventions and festivals because I got tired of answering all these questions that they throw at me. And I said, can I convince you people that I'm not a vampire, but that I do act and that I'm a normal person who reads stories? And that's what I've been doing ever since I've become a storyteller in my old age.
We are joined now by Lara Parker, who played Angelique. She's at her home in Los Angeles, and the only reason she couldn't be in the studio is, I guess, Lara's in the middle of a move. Is that right, young lady?
Yes, that's right.
They tell me you're standing in the middle of an empty house.
We can hear the echo.
Yeah, I'm only here to answer the phone. There are a few boxes sitting around, and I just was going through my jewelry box and came across my teeth, my fangs, buried underneath some necklaces.
Oh, Lara had fangs, you know.
Oh, sure.
Proper fangs that were
Proper
made.
fangs fitted by a proper dentist.
This is the last time you moved, Lara. You told me that before you bought a house, you bought a horse. Do you still have that horse?
No, I don't still have the horse, but that's true. I moved to Topanga Canyon,
I couldn't believe that.
It was sort of the last echelon of hippies up here, and I thought, well, before I can even come here, I have to have my own horse to ride around.
That's a beautiful story.
No, the horse is gone,
Oh, too bad.
but I'm still living in Topanga.
And what has Lara gone on to since Dark Shadows? I know you've been on a lot of the primetime programs, Highway to Heaven, Remington Steele, Quincy, and those. But what has Lara gone on to?
Well, that's about it. I mean, I've continued to audition and play roles on television. I've done several miniseries and a couple of films. And I've had a very nice career. And right now I'm involved in writing scripts. I've just finished my second script and gotten an agent, a writing agent, which is very exciting. It's sort of a new career for me.
Looking back on Dark Shadows, what was the one thing that happened that in Dark Shadows you think that really put Lara on the map, that really made you part of the company and a star of the show?
Well, I was given a wonderful part. I was given the part of the witch and the troublemaker.
Right.
And at first I was I was unhappy because I wanted Kathryn's part. I wanted to be the heroine. So whenever things went wrong, whenever I lost Barnabas's love, which happened again and again and again,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go off and sit in the rose garden and cry. And they would take me aside and say, "No, you're the heavy, honey. You've got to make trouble. You've got to make the sparks fly." And so I cast spells and made people miserable. And
Didn't you realize the snake has all the lines? He has the best lines.
Jonathan used to take me aside and say, "You've got a really great part. You just have to get into it. You just have to believe that you're truly jealous and you're truly evil." And so after a while, I began to realize that every time I came on the screen, that spines tingled all the way across the country. Everybody went, "Oh no, there she is again!"
It's funny when Laura and I are such close friends, and when we have lunch together and we go into a restaurant, people are still amazed to see Angelique and Josette Dupre at the same table.
I always get recognized.
Lara, what kinds of things do they, memorabilia, what are the people like? What kind of things can you buy from Dark Shadows?
Well, they have wonderful photographs.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to have dug out every single one.
Yes.
And old scripts that sometimes it's the original script. All of us have been called upon to dig out every old script we can find, and sometimes scripts with the notes written in the margin.
Even the daily schedules.
Do they swap stuff back and forth?
Oh, yes. There were cookbooks and those Viewmaster things and
Okay.
bubblegum cards.
Oh,
and
yes, I had a wonderful bubblegum card at one point. And then some of the people have done videotapes off the air, which they sell.
Do any of you have your own collections of stuff like?
Oh, I've got a wonderful thing. Dick Smith did my makeup for the film when we did House of Dark Shadows, and he took a piece of veal and he had his dog bite into it, and then he made a latex cast of that, and that was the scar that I wore on my neck when Barnabas bit me. And for some reason, I found it in a trunk about 5 years ago, wrapped in tissue paper.
Was this cooked veal or raw veal?
It was raw veal, but he used it to make the scar.
That.
But
is
I brought
disgusting.
it to one of the festivals and showed. It's a wonderful piece of work. He's a great makeup man. It's a beautiful piece of work.
There's makeup, and then there's veal that's been bitten by a dog. Those are two different things. But the piece of veal sold for $28 million. Yes, Laura. Yes.
I was actually able to use my teeth on the Johnny Carson show. I was on as a guest, and he was interested in Dark Shadows. And I was explaining that it was the bite of the vampire was actually a very romantic thing.
Uh-huh.
And that the women were drawn to the vampire as a woman in love would be drawn to the man she loved. And he said, "Well, can we act this out?" And he did not know that I had my teeth with me
Oh, you're kidding.
in the palm of my hand. And so I said to him, as Jonathan used to always say, and I was playing a vampire at the time, so I also was drawing young men to my upstairs room. Come to me for comfort. And of course, he went right into my arms, and I turned around and ducked down and put the teeth in, and reared back and gave him an enormous bite.
I remember that.
He spun around. Talk about memorabilia. That's what I said just a few minutes ago. I found those very teeth.
I'm sure you've been asked this, but I've never met you before, so I have to find out for me. I'm sure that you've seen the Bela Lugosi films about the vampire, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you went in to do the read, when your agent called and you were coming back from Florida, did you take any of Dracula with you in there as the vampire?
No, absolutely not. I mean, first of all, I'm not from the Balkans, and I don't do the accent very well. And but there was one funny incident, though, when I went in there. There were all these cadaverous-looking actors all around, and I thought, I don't have a chance anyway here. Well, I got it, so I was the most cadaverous of them all, I guess. And there were some pretty spooky-looking people.
I've only got a minute here, and I thank you all for coming in tonight. This audience has been clamoring for the Dark Shadows reunion, and we did the best we could. Lara, thanks for joining us by telephone.
Do I have a second?
Just a second. Yes, you do.
You asked me what was in my future. I do have a son who's just made his second record for EMI America. The name of the band is called Lions and Ghosts, and the record is Wild Garden.
Terrific.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lara. It's our pleasure. Thanks for being with us. Jonathan, thank you for coming
Tom.
in.
It's my pleasure.
And thank you very kindly, Kathryn, for being with us this evening.
Thank you.
And if you want more information, you can write to Dark Shadows Festival, Post Office Box 92, Maplewood, New Jersey, 07040. I'm T.S., and you're on the radio show for Thursday night, the 2nd of March, 1989. Thanks for listening, everybody.